Salutations, Songbirdians! Happy Pride Month! And to celebrate, I am going to be talking about Love Bites by Alicia Wallis. It is a gay romance, so if you are uncomfortable with that sort of thing, either use this as exposure therapy or go away, because it's time for the LGBT community to shine. Or legit bit of qua if you play the games I do. And enjoy Pride Month with me. Here's the drill. I read at minimum the first 5 episodes or chapters of a webcomic or book. I often read more than that so I can accurately determine whether I think a series is up to its hype or if it's only meme fodder, like Swords. The webcomic I will be talking about today is Love Bites by Alicia Wallis, alongside other art, which to me, as I read it, it looked like it was made by an entire team of artists that I'm pretty sure I've seen at other places on the Webtoon app or on other webcomics. So it's for sure gonna be an interesting, so it very much has that standard Webtoon look, which honestly, not a bad thing. It just means I've seen it a lot in other places. And I like the art style, so gives it brownie points, that's for sure. It is actually a webcomic adaptation of the Wattpad original called Bite Me. It's about a vampire boy named Kieran who essentially experiences his gay awakening when there is a new boy in class named Mason Kane. Kieran's whole world is turned upside down, topsy-turvy, by Mason. But the question is, can Kieran keep his shit together, or will he wind up breaking the pact that keeps him and his family safe? Here's my first impression. It gives me the vibe of Superbad. Not that it is actually a Superbad comic, it genuinely isn't. But if we're going strictly based off vibes, I keep thinking of Superbad that is just the impression I'm getting. Like, it just feels like I'm reading a Superbad fanfic. But the longer I stare at the character designs, the more they look like Lance and Keith from Voltron. Like, take a look at these pictures right next to me and tell me you don't see these two guys. Tell me you don't see the similarities. This is not to say it is bad. I am just that they're bad character design. Personally, it makes me like it even more because I am unfortunately a victim of Voltron. The only fandom Voltron, the only fandom where the fans say they were victims of it. I love it. I love Voltron. It's so awesome. There's even more in this webcomic that supports this because their school mascot is a lion. Mason Kane is on the football team, okay? So he's a jock. Kieran, who looks like Keith, is a goth. It's your standard vampire biker goth, and I love it. But like, those football uniforms that Mason wears is blue! Lance is the blue lion paladin from Voltron! Combine this with the fact that when I finally found the Wattpad original, what I saw was the timestamps for the fic was uploaded way back in 2017, and the author message had said that it had been rewritten. Unfortunately, their DMs are not open, so I wasn't able to like ask the author specifically what in the world it was, but that alone is enough proof to at least have some validity to the claim that this was originally a Clansfic that got turned into an original story, which, hallelujah, I love it! This is my heated rivalry. Like, Clans is my heated rivalry this year. But that is where the similarities end, though, as their personalities are a lot different. Like, Mason is a lot more sincere than Lance is. Lance is just, like, your classic playboy. Like, but yeah. And Kieran, while still pretty quiet and cold and quiet and standoffish, is a lot more open than Keith is. Even the likes and interests of the characters are completely different from that of Voltron, as well as the family trees. In Voltron, Keith does not have a brother. Or a father. And Lance is Cuban. I have no idea what a Mason's ethnicity is, but I'm pretty sure it's not that. If I were to hazard a guess, probably Native American, just because you don't often see Native American representation, and I like to think that they are Native American. I actually knew some Native American folks in my life. They're nice. And I just like to picture Native American werewolves. That's just a me thing. But anyway, that does not matter. That can all go out the window. Because even if it did start as a Voltron alternate universe and Omegaverse fic, more on that later, it doesn't diminish the story at all for me. It just means I can see exactly where they got inspiration from. Like, I'm pretty sure that Cedric was inspired by Edward, or Cedric Diggory from... No, I'm pretty sure he was inspired by... The artist was inspired by the actor when making the character designs for it, or something like that. It's the whole thing. But all I really know from Twilight is the memes, and that is one of the worst romances of all time, which is part of the memes. And the only reason I haven't watched or read it now is purely out of spite. I don't want to read. So take what I say about it with a grain of salt, please. I am not an expert. I do not plan to read those books, but I like the memes. Like, dang it, Moon! Before I get into it, the book does include Omegaverse themes. If you don't know what Omegaverse is and want to know more about it, while I will give a brief one-sentence explanation, a brief explanation on it, there's somewhere else you can go with a more detailed, that has more details about Omegaverse, more than what I am able to give here. So, you want the full details, even stuff I'm uncomfortable talking about on here? Go watch Coley Does Things video on Omegaverse. Watch Coley Does Things video on Omegaverse, which should be in a card right up here. Be sure to like and subscribe before you go watch it, though. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm getting so close to 60. Coley, just go watch Coley. After this video, just watch Coley Does Things video on Omegaverse. She's extremely well researched, able to explain a lot more than me. and has a very specific deep dive on it, which I have actually listened to. Her channel is great for fandom stuff, but you wanna, and as always, if you want to leave suggestions for stuff for me to read, leave it in the comments. Go on, because there is some things in Omegaverse that I really don't want to say, but thankfully I don't have to, because the 18+ stuff does not get a mention at all in the webcomic. So I am safe to just relax, have a fun time. And at any rate, with my personal warnings and suggestions out of the way, let's continue on, shall we? For what Omegaverse is, it's simply this online set of writing guidelines when writing werewolf fiction. It's specifically just werewolf pack dynamics using like the old school, like the incorrect wolf pack dynamic set, where you've got alphas, betas, and omegas. You can easily guess what those are. But these guidelines are actually more common to see in fan fiction and online web novel writing spheres, so like Wattpad, AO3, fanfiction.net. All of those places, you're actually more likely to find Omegaverse stuff. Like, I actually have found a few webcomics that do actually deal in Omegaverse stuff, and even tried to do an audiobook for someone that actually wrote an Omegaverse novel. So, they do exist outside of here, but Omegaverse is essentially just guidelines for werewolf and gay writing novels and gay romances. It's great. I like it a lot. I just don't do a deep dive into the deep end. So the thing is, there's a lot more paranormal romances that actually use Omegaverse stuff, in addition to other tropes for things like vampires and stuff, which is exactly what this webcomic did. And it just provides these guidelines actually provide a pretty nice safety net for when you're writing werewolf stuff, so that way you don't have to start from scratch, so you at least have something to build off of, rather than trying to create a society from scratch like I did. My werewolf society is not very fleshed out still. I'm still struggling with that. So you want to write an easy werewolf story? Use Omegaverse. Now, as I said before, this webcomic is not my first rodeo with Omegaverse stuff, as there are other webcomics I have, and that novel the audiobook I said I tried to do. I had to stop because I got uncomfortable, but that's an entirely different thing. The story itself on Webtoon is rated as young adult 16+, which essentially means it's on the end of the rating PG-13 rating spectrum. That makes it closer to R, but still never quite crosses that threshold. In other words, it's more on the adult side of young adult novel spectrum, which means that if you know Omegaverse well and you're not gonna find the spicier things in the webcomic pleasant, the Omegaverse tags that would be involved in this story is simply an alpha complex, fated mates, feral, and your typical alpha and beta pack dynamics, though the story actually never overtly focuses on that, only briefly mentions it. And the pack thing is very specific to Mason's family only, and as far as I know, within the story of the webcomic, they are the only werewolves. Like, as far as I know, they're the only werewolves, but apparently mermaids exist in that world, so that's fun. To explain, everyone and their mother knows the fated mates trope at this point. That is not specific to werewolf things at all. Like, you see it in vampire, you see it in fae, like Sarah J. Maas's Akotar, like you see it everywhere. Like, the soulmates thing, fated mates is literally just a supernatural version of soulmates. That is it. So it's like, you write a soulmate story, but you're doing paranormal stuff. Guess what? It's fated mates. That is quite literally the only barrier here. But to give a brief explanation here, the alpha complex is essentially a protectiveness sort of thing, where essentially if they see themselves as getting one-upped in front of their mate, they will do their best to actually one-up that other person, sometimes even getting into fights. It's essentially male pride on steroids. And as for feral, that literally just means that at some point in the story, he just acts more like a wolf than a person. Nothing wrong with that. It can get messy sometimes, but in this case, it doesn't get too bad. Just a single scene, as far as I've read. Here's what I think of the story in and of itself, because I did have fun reading it. But the question is, would I recommend this to other people? I'm gonna start with the webcomic because that's what I started reading. So in terms of the story, I think it is absolutely worth the read for Pride Month, if nothing else. Like, if you want a nice, quick read to just read in Pride Month for it, Love Bites is perfect. It's fun, it's enjoyable. Pacing is somewhere in the middle, and what else is there to say, really? I've probably repeated the same thing a million times already. So I would recommend this for anyone who heard about heated rivalry and wants to dip their toes into the shallow end of the same-sex romances of the boy love pool, because this is on the lighter side. On the more lighthearted side of that, thankfully, I've seen clips from heated rivalry. The heated rivalry is the deep end. Like, trust me, that is the deep end. So if you want to dip your toes into BLB, a boy loves boy, or oftentimes it's just shortened to boy love, BL. So you want to tip your toes into the shallow end of the pool before taking a full-blown plunge like I did. I am still not going to do heated rivalry. The Love Bites is perfect. It's lighthearted, it's funny, you get a lot of teenager shenanigans, and it's easy to see them as teenagers rather than adults in teenager clothing like you tend to see in some of these. Other things about this story that I think is that this story is basically Baby's first Omegaverse. It still has the full moon stuff. It's like, it has enough of the main themes to create an interest in it, but not enough to scare away, because because when I tell you the furry shit you see with Omegaverse, oh my word, it can get nuts. So be careful if you're reading Omegaverse, unless you're already head deep in it, then have fun. But yeah, I do recommend this for people who are interested in trying to be more interested in paranormal romances. Like, this is genuinely an excellent, I personally only really recommend this as a part of a starter pack for paranormal romances and boy love romances, as well as an introduction to Omegaverse. And this does have, and since it uses the lighter end of the main tropes you find in Omegaverse, that makes Love Bites an excellent starting point. And all in all, the romance is very wholesome, and while the story does start with cheating, it's not without consequences. Like, for me personally, that it's a big thing when you see things like cheating in stories, that there is consequences, or at least the characters feel guilty, which they do. There's so much guilt on both of the characters' sides for the whole thing that's going on, that I swear to you, you don't even see them kiss more than twice before they actually start like splitting up with the couple, before they actually split off stuff to make it not cheating anymore. And they actually apologize and grovel at the feet. Like, there's an actual apology, and and the characters have to try and earn, like, it's not without consequences. They do have to earn the forgiveness of the character that they cheated on, which is great. It's very nice. I like that that it wasn't just something, like, it's not something that they just brushed off, clean slate. No, they actually let you stew in it for a bit. That, oh, this character is mad at them. And, which honestly it's like a breath of fresh air. Either way, the consequences are there, and they are very reasonable for how long it went on. Now, remember, keep in mind, these characters are high schoolers, and they act like high schoolers. So stupid mistakes are just gonna be part of the course for the story. And the humor is simple but effective. Now, onto the Wattpad version. Because it truly is a whole other can of worms that the story, as the story is rated mature on Wattpad. For the Wattpad version, it is good. However, I think you are better off reading the graphic novel as the Wattpad version. You do have to spend the money on it, as it is a locked series. So if you do plan to read the Wattpad version, just buy the physical novel version that I'm sure is available. Most Wattpad originals do have a physical version available. I just have not. As of recording, I have not looked at that yet. But otherwise, the author's notes gave me some sweet vindication, as they had made it clear that they had to rewrite the Wattpad version. And when I checked the timestamps for the original uploads, which is literally right there, even if they edit it, the timestamp won't change. It says that it was originally uploaded in 2017, shortly after season 2 of Voltron came out, which means it is indeed a clansfic, or what, or was before it got picked up by Wattpad. Personally, I would only recommend reading the original novelization / Wattpad version of Love Bites if that was going to be your first interaction with Love Bites as a whole, as I tried to read it after the Love Bites version, and it's just not as interesting, and I'm just not drawn to it like I am with the webcomic version, which is really unfortunate, because I really did want to look at the differences between the two, but if I'm not drawn to it, it's not really gonna happen. But to its credit, I do have this one screenshot of the Wattpad version that had me rolling in my seat, like that I was laughing so hard. It should be right there. Pause if you want to read it. But that's all I've got for Love Bites for today. So if you want suggestions on things that I could leave suggestions for me to read, leave them in the comments or put them in the suggestions thing I have on my Patreon with the link in description. And I'll see you at the next one, which is sure to be a big business proposal.